Welcome to Leadership English, the best resource for executives who are non native English speakers. My name is Tanya Suarez, and as your leadership communication coach, I'm here to help you lead in English with authority and authenticity. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how you can build your confidence as an English speaker. Now, because I love actionable tips and things that really allow you to apply the strategies that you learn with me, we're going to learn how to build it. And then we're also going to go over 5 expressions that you can use to guide meetings effectively. I find that for executives who are non native English speakers, meetings still tend to cause some anxiety and some friction, but it's the little moments of transitioning. It's how to get from one topic to the next. And that's where I find there's some insecurity. Like you're probably really secure about the topics, the agenda, what you want to say, but it's moving from one to the other or diplomatically guiding the meeting and moving it along. So I want to practice pronunciation and intonation with 5 expressions that you can use immediately. And for your free leadership English communication toolkit, head over to tanyasuarez.com/lead to download it today. The first thing you can do to build your confidence in English is actually a nonverbal communication tip. It's your posture. A lot of times when we have insecurities, our bodies reflect it. So you might be avoiding it if you're in a virtual meeting, you're all the way down here. I really want you to take a look and take up space on the screen. If you're in a meeting, make sure you're sitting up, your shoulders are back. If you're standing, make sure your arms are relaxed, your hands are relaxed, and also be open to moving around a little so you don't get frozen. The other benefit of first focusing on your posture is that it helps your breathing. If you've worked with me, you know breathing is a huge component of fluency and confidence. So when your posture is good, your lungs are open and it reminds you to take in that oxygen. As a non native speaker, you don't even realize that you have a tendency to hold your breath. I find that this habit happens between the beginner and intermediate phases of your English development, but you subconsciously hold on to it even when you're fluent. And what happens is when you hold your breath, your heart rate increases, the anxiety increases, and it does the opposite of what you want. You do it because it helps you, or you think it helps you listen better, but what it does is it makes you more nervous and then you're more distracted by your thoughts. And most importantly, you can't communicate clearly because you can't access the language that you need. So good posture equals better breathing equals better fluency. The next tip sounds simple and probably obvious, but as you know, it is not easy. You really need to work on decreasing your anxiety in order to build your confidence. Now, decreasing anxiety is crucial because it affects your life, not just your communication. Some of you might notice that the day before a meeting or presentation, you start feeling anxious. Your sleep is not that great. You wake up and your stomach might hurt, or you just feel overwhelmed. And especially if the meeting or presentation isn't until later, your whole day, you might feel brain fog. You might have that anxiety manifest in other ways, like your stomach might be upset. So it's really important to address this because decreasing your anxiety increases your fluency, which increases your confidence. Now, something that I do with my clients in every session is a really simple process I call 3-2-1. So you massage your ears in 3 different spots. And the things that I say along with it, which I recommend you also do, are mantras that help you combat negative self thought and just fill oh, your entire being with positivity. So typically I'll say, English equals calm confidence. For 2, you're going to raise your shoulders and drop them. So 1, 2. Now, here I want you to say, my English is good enough. And at first, especially if this is something you don't truly believe, you're going to feel defensive. But we're going to keep saying that. And the more you do it, the more you start accepting that your English is good enough. And then for 1, you're going to take a deep breath. Now, this is where I like to have a little something different because when you do this consistently, it's natural that it becomes automatic. And then the words that you're saying don't quite have the same impact. So for the last step, the 1 breath, do something that's specific for that moment. For example, I am confident. I am relaxed. I am awesome. Do whatever you need to help you get in the right energy space for that moment. Last but not least, you really need to work on reframing negativity in order to build your confidence. This is something that I see in my clients at the C-suite level, people who have these amazing careers, this just mind blowing expertise level. But because there's that insecurity about the language or that frustration of not being able to translate their leadership skills in a way that connects with their American or English speaking audience, there's a lot of negative self talk. And this could be, my English isn't good enough. I'm not good enough. You really want to identify how often that creeps in. Now, then this just happened with a client earlier today. This can also come across in a way that feels productive and professional, but it's toxic. And what I mean by this is, and because I work with a lot of high performers, a lot of really smart, ambitious people, nothing's ever good enough in general. And it's framed in a way of it could be better. And so if you're constantly doing things in terms of speaking English and communicating, and you're always thinking, no, I need to do this better. I need to speak up better. I need to do XYZ. You're never appreciating your progress and your success. So you're not really building on a solid foundation, and confidence absolutely needs that. You need to acknowledge your wins in order to build. If you're constantly on the I coulda, shoulda, woulda done it better, it's so toxic, it's draining, it's demoralizing, and it's just not fun. You're at these amazing levels of leadership. Your presence, your communication style impacts so many people. That is a privilege. So, in order for you to be able to serve those in your company, you have to be the best version of yourself and also lead by example. I want you to have positive self talk in the same way that you would want your team to do it, because that's going to build the company morale, improve communication, and help you lead to succeed. And of course, the key to anything working is consistency. So I want you to be extra mindful this week of your posture, catch those moments of anxiety and breathe through it, and be aware of the negativity that you're filling yourself with and reframe it. Find something positive. Instead of thinking, what if I mess up the pronunciation? Focus on, I have valuable insights to share. Remember, you're a CEO, you're a CTO, you're an executive, a director. They're not there to learn English from you. So making small mistakes don't need to lead to these big moments of insecurity and communication breakdown. Give yourself grace and remember that your value is in your stories, your experiences, not in perfect grammar and perfect pronunciation. Now that you have your marching orders on how to build your confidence, let's actually practice some phrases that you can use this week in your meeting. As you know, one of the biggest challenges in meetings is keeping people on track. So let's practice using this phrase that will help you bring the focus. Repeat after me. Let me bring this back to. Now let's look at the example. Now that we've covered the market data, let me bring this back to how it impacts our Q3 hiring plan. It's really important that you practice out loud. Not only is fluency very physical, pronunciation is muscular, but you also need to work on your intonation. This is what's going to help you actually sound diplomatic. This is where a lot of my clients feel that if they have the perfect English, then they'll always be perceived as professional. But it's not actually the English structure, it's the intonation. So practice this again. Now that we've covered the market data, let me bring this back to how it impacts our Q3 hiring plan. Notice how I almost get a little bit higher pitch as well. Let me bring this back, and you want to slow down a little bit. Remember, everyone's distracted at this point. You've got to give them that verbal cue that we're going to change gears. Let me bring this back to how it impacts our Q3 hiring plan. On the flip side, maybe people aren't distracted or off topic. Maybe they're staying on a topic too long. And so this phrase is going to help you move on in a way that's respectful and diplomatic. Repeat after me. Moving from X to Y, we see that. So notice the power of pausing. Notice how I'm not rushing through it. I'm not saying this slowly because I'm teaching you as a non native speaker. I'm doing this intentionally because, again, people need that verbal cue that you're the authority figure and that you're bringing them back. You're getting their attention. So oftentimes, slowing down a little bit can increase engagement. Let's take a look at the example. Moving from our customer feedback to our product roadmap, we see that prioritizing usability will accelerate adoption. Take your time. So many of my clients think that if you speak faster, you sound more fluent. Unfortunately, it has the opposite effect. People are going to get more confused because they can't understand you. It could be an accent issue or a speed issue. They're going to look confused and say, huh, or what did you say? That's going to kill your confidence. You're going to get all in your head. So take your time and don't speak slowly. What I actually want you to do, because if you tell yourself speak slower, it's going to it has a weird effect on people. It always ends up feeling disingenuous. Instead, I just want you to open your mouth more. It has the same effect, but it increases the likelihood that your pronunciation is going to be clearer. So just open your mouth more. And when you're practicing, exaggerate it. It should feel weird, but that way, when you're in the moment, the adrenaline's going, your heart's racing, the speed evens out with the openness. So let's try again. Moving from our customer feedback to our product roadmap, we see that prioritizing usability will accelerate adoption. Here's a pronunciation tip. Notice that the S in usability actually sounds like a Z. There's a slight vibration. So if you're working on refining your accent, these are small moments that have a pretty big impact. Being a leader does not mean knowing everything. Being a leader means knowing what you don't know and helping facilitate conversations that lead to solutions. So, this question is great for that. Repeat after me. So, what does this mean for us? Let's take a look at the example. Our revenue growth is up 12%. So, what does this mean for our expansion strategy? This is really powerful. A lot of times, because of the language issue, and what I mean by issue in this case is the language insecurity, I find that sometimes leaders who are non native English speakers will overcompensate. You almost feel like you don't have permission to ask questions because you have to prove yourself more than your native speaking counterparts. And that's just not true. Or you might also come from a culture where asking questions and having that more collaborative process isn't the best form. But in American companies or multinational companies where American English is the preferred style, asking questions, being curious, having more collaborative approach is actually value add. So I really want you to get comfortable with posing questions and then pause, breathe. Don't try to answer the question immediately. Let other people participate. This is also great if you're working on refining your leadership style to be more inclusive and really take advantage of all the knowledge and expertise that your team has. You need to create a culture, create an environment where there are opportunities for them to contribute. To keep things moving, this phrase will really help. Repeat after me. Here's the question we need to answer next. Let's take a look at the example. We've agreed on the budget increase. Here's the question we need to answer next. How will we measure ROI? Now, this is really interesting because in addition to allowing you to facilitate a more collaborative approach, it also allows you to sound more natural. So I find that there are different experiences here. If you're coming from a culture that tends to value context and get to the point later, you might be saying too much. So as you can see here, this will help you have an idea of how to express this in a more concise form. Now, on the flip side, if you're from a culture that's super direct and bottom line, you might be too blunt, and that's going to be perceived as either aggressive or not very open. Being able to inject phrases like these will allow people to feel safe for contributing and take it more seriously that you're asking a question. Now, for the pronunciation tip, when we have things like ROI, CEO, please take your time with the pronunciation. It is really important. I can't tell you the amount of times that I've had people say CEO, but because they're rushing through the letters, it sounds like CO. And that's a completely different position. I know it's going to feel like you're exaggerating the letters. You're not. It sounds great. So ROI, ROI. And our final phrase for today is a great way to finish meetings and presentations. In fact, this is one of the techniques that I teach the most. When you're finished a presentation or a meeting, don't finish with have a good day. Or if it's a presentation, like finished with just your contact information. Always finish with the main takeaway. This does require a little bit of prep, whether it's listening carefully throughout the meeting or preparing the day before. And what do you want the main takeaway to be? And so this will help you leave them with an actionable message. It'll help them remember. Because remember, People are in meetings all day long, so you have to distill the information in a way that it increases retention. So let's practice the expression, repeat after me. To wrap up this section, remember, and again, here you can do to wrap up this section when it's an agenda point. It could be to wrap up this meeting, but using the word remember, that's a lot more effective than you saying don't forget. So make sure you use the positive, remember, and it triggers you to, okay, this is main takeaway time. Let's take a look at the example. To wrap up this section, remember that clear, concise messaging is what builds stakeholder trust. Don't just listen to this video. Don't just take notes. It's really important for you to practice using these expressions out loud because this is what's going to allow you to use these expressions when you need them. You've got to feel it. You have to breathe through it. Practice your posture. Practice decreasing anxiety. Make sure that you're reframing your negative thoughts that you might have during these meetings. So, if you'd like in depth training and one on one coaching, apply to my Leadership Communication Accelerator at tanyasuarez.com/leadership. Thank you so much. And remember, your English is good enough. Now you get to elevate your executive presence in English to be the leader you deserve to be.